Welcome back to the Layman's Law School. I am your host, along with my co-host, Reid Sanders. My name is Chace Hawk, by the way. I didn't introduce myself. I'm an idiot.
You're so famous now. You don't
I
have
don't
to.
have to. That's what you work until you don't have to introduce yourself. There you go. So today I have a very, very special guest, and we're going to be talking about basically the journey to becoming a lawyer. It is double the Hawk power in the room today because I have the great and powerful Erin Hawk, my younger cousin.
Nice.
Who recently went to law school and recently passed the bar.
I did.
Congratulations.
Absolutely.
It was a fun time.
Lots of fun times. No stress.
Well, Well, you know, we have a tradition because it was on Friday. You know, we've had a good week. We've
sometimes you have a bad week.
Yeah,
but
we resolve. Yeah, either way, this part helps. So we always celebrate with some sort of beverage. Erin is a better person than both you and I, and so he's going to abstain, and I have a special drink for him that Granny used to always keep in the freezer, but.
Happy Friday, boys. Cheers. This is always my go-to, as y'all know. This is, I got stopped by the train, so I couldn't get the 97 Bud Lights, the ones that are pristine. These are just your classic. Run of the mill. Just, it tastes
brewed
so good.
In 2022.
Probably 19, you know, who knows.
Just like I remember.
Jay, one of my favorite things about the podcast is seeing your eyes after you take that first sip of Bud Light, and how much you enjoy it.
Let me tell you something about Reid Sanders. He and Whitney get along because the funniest thing in the world to them is watching me suffer.
It's your discomfort. Well, you know, and it's got to be a discomfort that is not long-lasting or very harmful. Seeing him in awkward situations is more funny to me.
Yeah.
Like at Walmart.
Yes, Walmart.
Things happen at Walmart. I don't have a good track record at Walmart. I'm not allowed at 2 here in the CSRA at this point.
For good reasons.
For excellent reasons. But we won't go into that right now. So we're going to talk about, like I said, the journey of sort of becoming a lawyer. So everybody has a different reason for going.
Sure.
And, you know, my personal one was I realized I didn't like working. For the most part,
I got some news for you, Bubba.
I'm just saying, but I knew that I knew that I was gonna have to, right? And every job I ever did, I really kind of eventually got tired of doing it, and so it only made sense. You know, money to me is I'm not into cars,
right?
You know, I drive old car, but I do like freedom. I like being able to go and do what I want so money was freedom to me, and I was like, all right, so I got a ready-made source. My dad's got a practice. He can. That's going to be the easiest way for me to trade my time for money.
I wouldn't say they're going to make like a buy-up on you. This isn't going to be some documentary on how Chase went to... Well, because it's not a good reason, is my point. Erin hopefully has a better reason than you.
Yeah. No, I think I have a feeling Erin's going to be pretty close. So I just figured it was the easiest way to change. And I was very, very lucky in that respect, in that like the law is something that constantly changes because you're coming into different cases all the time, right? And you got to plan it. But Erin, what convinced you to start this little journey?
So I guess with me, it was just really, I don't know. I don't feel like I could remember a time where I didn't think, hey, I'm definitely going to be an attorney. And I think it's just because of, growing up around attorneys constantly in the office. And it's almost seems like a family thing.
Yeah, it's like a natural progression.
It's kind of sort of.
Yeah.
It was just next step kind of thing.
Yeah, but then on top of that, I was just always really interested in how basically the law and people interacted, and probably more from like an academic standpoint than actually practicing law.
Right.
But yeah, and then just the sort of the gaming of it all. It's all based on game theory, where you got two opposing sides battling each other, and then the outcome that's supposed to result is supposed to be beneficial.
Sure.
But at the same time, it is a high stakes competitive game.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, and you played a pretty sort of high stakes kind of like baseball. You were a baseball prospect for quite some time, and you enjoyed that sort of you're the pitcher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like always the
Right.
mental battle between the pitcher and the hitter all the time.
Exactly.
They used to, and going back a long ways, my dad, I had a similar experience, but almost the opposite, because nobody in my family outside of my dad and just like y'all's two fathers are attorneys, but I knew from the very early age, that I did not want to be an attorney, and I did not want to do what he did. So I kind of went about it a little different ways, and then found out there was a different type of law than criminal. So when I started working with Vic, the first thing I told him is said he offered me the job, and I said that I'd love to take it, but I'm not doing any criminal. And so that was my only stipulation. So mine was a little bit different. But going back to the competitive thing, my dad had told me a lot about getting into law school back in the what is it, 60s, 70s? I don't know, a long time ago. Sure. But your dad and my dad are similar age, but they would look at. Now it's more just numbers, LSAT, GPA, that kind of stuff. But way back when, they used to give more credence to, some like my dad played competitive tennis. If you were in some kind of competitive field, they gave you a little boost, right? And then I don't think that they do that anymore.
No. They just want to know if you mentally have the tools.
Right.
Yeah. And so, when Aaron started the law school process, I was super excited for him in that, I knew that eventually he would come along and help us out here in Augusta. And I always hated arguing against him.
Right.
Right. So, we would argue about philosophy, politics, whatever it was. And if we had a differing opinion, I knew it was going to be
a long night.
Yeah, it's going to be a long night because he doesn't give up,
Right.
and he actually only operates from a position of strong, like real strength.
High ground.
Yeah. He gets on that high ground. So, the first experience when you actually start the law school process, the first thing you have to do is take the LSAT, and for me that was a pain in the tail.
Can we back up?
Yeah, sure.
There's like three other things where. That sort of, I guess, gravitated me towards law, and one of them is just the fact that it's one of those career paths where you have to continuously learn. You don't just handle a medical malpractice case; you actually have to learn about the medical procedures and enough detail to
Well, that's why lawyers are so good on Jeopardy.
Yeah,
because you have to learn, like every case, you have to go, well, I have to learn about this profession.
Yeah.
Not that you could do it or know all the stuff, but you got to know. You got to be somewhat knowledgeable about that area.
Yeah, so like Reid knows quite a bit about sperm banks and storing and storing liquid nitrogen.
Of course he does.
And rock, exactly. Rock quarries. I mean, there's things that you go like, why do you know that?
Yeah.
Just don't worry about it.
Yeah, before you pour the molten steel into the foundry.
Right.
And the two other things are, one is, at least with a lot of practice areas, in particular criminal law, you get to basically fight the government for someone's freedom. And, if that's not American, I don't really know what it is. And then
worthwhile endeavor.
Yeah. And then the other thing, there's just a lot of things that are like deeply human about the whole process. You got someone that's in trouble, that obviously needs help, and they're reaching out for help, and that's about as human as it gets. And then you get to fight for people on an individual basis. You have to learn about the intricacies of their own life, their individuality,
and that's like, I mean, I talked about this on another one, For the Nation, I believe it was called, a podcast, but that's very similar to kind of what I said. You're on the defense side of criminal and on the plaintiff side of civil, and that's an entirely different ballgame than the reverse, because you're working with a person or a group of people, and it's your work it directly affects them.
Yeah.
Where the opposite of that is, at least in civil, with criminal, you're still like a prosecutor. You're still working for the victims and that kind of thing, but on the other side of civil, you're essentially working for an insurance company, or a business, and then you're working, the insurance company kind of tells you what to do and how you get paid. So you're really not, you don't have that human to human kind of relationship. And that's where I was going a different route, business and that kind of thing. And working with Vic, interning with him and seeing how you can change somebody's life like that really got me into the same thing that you're doing. So.
Exactly.
So when we're just going to move on to the sort of the LSAT and how you prepare for it. And the LSAT is basically a test that tests your mental ability to handle the type of analysis that's required in order to take a set of facts and apply what the rules are to that set of facts.
And I would say it's more a test on how your brain processes things than actually the answer itself.
Sure.
I mean, you still have to get the right answer. But
it has to process the information well.
Right. And, and there's different types of, there's nothing legal in it. I think people are confused about that. I mean, there's games in it, and there's... Gosh,
that was the worst.
The games was the best for me. But, then, but I'm a math brain, But, And so there's different types. They challenge you on different types of areas, and it's kind of like... but it has nothing to do with the law at all. It has nothing to do with it.
No.
So that was the strange part, at least for me.
So let me give you an example. If you're thinking about going to law school and you're thinking about studying for the LSAT, of a type of game. So they'll say, you got 4 houses on Green Street. Okay.
Or like 6.
Yeah. That was a little easy. But 4 houses on Green Street. 2 of them are 2-story houses. 3 of them have pets. 1 has a parrot, 1 has a cat. 2 of them are blue, 1 is green, 1 is white. Which color house does the parrot live in?
Right.
Something like
and
that.
You have to deduct it out.
And there is a way. They design it so there is a way to figure that part out. And I'm just riffing, coming off, but you have to learn the formula. You have to learn how to apply it.
A lot, most of the puzzles and that kind of thing. There could essentially be 2 correct answers up until the last part of the process.
Yeah.
So
you have to finish
all
it
of them, all the answers, you go through a lengthy process of deduction, and all of them are still there. That they don't give you a free knock one out.
Yeah. They're all
so
difficult.
if you don't get the last little deduction part, then you're just guessing.
Yeah.
I love that. I used to do that in my free time. The other stuff I hated. I hate it.
Yeah, you end up having to learn. I don't know about when y'all went through the whole preparation process, but they taught you.
I'll tell you this real quick. I want you to go back to that. So my preparation, because my father was so wise, he said, yeah, you don't have to study. I didn't even know what it was. I signed up and just walked in and took it. So that was my preparation. So then I had to take it again.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It was just, at least when, I went through the whole, I think it was Kaplan or Barbary course.
Yeah.
For the logic game section in particular, which is the one section that, 90+%, probably like 95+% of people that's the one section they can improve on the most.
Right.
They end up teaching you this like coded language to draw out all the if this then that statements.
Sure.
And you have to. It's only if you don't know that language. I mean, I don't know how you do the problems.
I think it's just the type of brain that you have. Like I said, my brain kind of works that way to start.
Yeah.
And I've talked to a couple of friends that are lawyers, and most lawyers have some kind of writing or verbal kind of thing. And that's kind of the way their brain works. And so mine does not. Mine's math and that kind of thing. So I remember I was taking some tax classes in law school, and it was just, I'm thinking it's going to be tough, and it was just
heavenly,
ungodly remedial. I mean, and people were struggling, and I'm going, and in the other class they're kicking my butt, like you know what I mean. And I can't keep up, and in this one I'm like, I took every tax class I could take. It was an automatic A. I would say, generally speaking, though, that most people that it's communication majors, or it's not a math major that goes into law generally.
No, but everybody brings a different skill set to that thing, and it's usually somebody that's got a little bit of everything that actually ends up doing well in law school and in law practice, because you have to have the analytical reasoning, you have to have the logical reasoning, you have to be able to read and comprehend, right? But you also have to know how to deal with people, because I've met some people out there that are actually absolutely brilliant at all three of those things that would really, really struggle in this environment. They would have a hard time just having a conversation with somebody, but they're absolutely brilliant folks. But
those attorneys, they write Supreme Court briefs
or patent law.
Or patent law.
But so like for my I don't know. Do you guys want to like measure? You said you took it twice, so you had to average your scores.
Right.
I took it twice because I had a meltdown in my first one. And I walked out after the second session.
I took the first time. Like I said, I had no preparation. I was like, ace that son of a bitch.
No problem.
That's all you got. I took it a second time because I was sure I could do a good bit better than I did the first time, but I ended up actually walking out the second time because second to last logic games problem, I'm like 2/3 of the way through it, and realized I'd always had this problem doing the logic games where when they give you the little hints that you need to start out the problem. Always had a problem writing down when they said is not, and I would write it down as is.
Oh God.
And I realized I did exactly that 2/3 of the way through this problem, and I'm like, this is done.
I don't have enough time.
You don't have time to fix it.
Yeah.
That's essentially the same exact thing happened to me.
Yeah.
But
I just
but here's the thing is
score.
I've never had anybody ask me what my LSAT score is.
Honest to God, I don't remember. I know it was. I don't know if they've changed it. I know the first one was awful. It was like 140 something. I don't know what it was. Yeah. And then the second one was like 160 something. But it was, I don't know the exact number, but it was a drastic change when I actually prepared for it. Thanks, Dad. And they had to average them. I'm like, well, if I'd known, you know.
And it doesn't really equate to whether or not you can handle law school or not. Because I bet we've had plenty of guys that scored perfect that went into my law school, scored perfect on the LSAT exam that failed out.
Wow.
Well, one of the best lawyers I know that even the bar exam, he passed by 1 point. But, I mean, on the line, and he's one of the best. I mean, lawyers I know. You know, it doesn't judge. It's just it's a way to exclude people.
Yeah,
so
filtering mechanism.
That's all it is. It doesn't tell you who's going to be successful or not.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about law school. We got in. Was law school what you expected it to be?
No. At least I thought it was going to be more, you have to stand up and sort of be grilled in front of the class. And I guess by the time I had gotten to law school, most professors had moved away from that.
I didn't. What law school did you go to?
Sanford.
Sanford.
Actually, yeah.
Where Vic went, right?
Yeah, where Vic and my dad went.
Oh, Jock went. I didn't know that. Okay.
And I was honestly hoping it was more like that because most of the class ended up being more of just lecture style, which was boring, you know.
Mine was.
I think they did you a disservice there. To be honest,
for sure.
So I'm what 06, 07 around that area, and it was the Socratic method every class. I mean, it was you stand up and he's going to ask you questions until you don't. There's no way to win. I mean, he's got every case law that he memorized in that section, and so you just stand up there until he says you're wrong, and you have to sit down. And so then it goes to the next person. But I didn't know that it had. I know that it had changed from like when our parents were there, when it was automatically 1/3 of the students were going to fail. That was their quota. And they didn't do that when I was coming through. It was if you passed, you passed. There was no quota. But we still had the Socratic method really heavy. And it's interesting to me that even in when did you graduate law school?
2021.
Okay. So in 10, 15 years, it's changed that much. So who knows what it's going to be next? I don't know. Yeah.
So like I had a hard time with public speaking to start out with. And so it was very good for me to like be forced in the assistant. And I would actually volunteer once a class because I realized
you were that guy.
I would well here's like nobody
hated that guy.
That was me. But nobody would answer. But I had it as a thing that I would get up because it made me really nervous and I really would struggle with it but I knew it was something I was going to have to do, so I might as well do it here versus do it in a courtroom somewhere.
Right.
And so I got up at least try to get up once in every class to answer a question about a case. But I didn't necessarily do well at it for
Sure.
a while. But that process of doing that and being able to just move on past, like, I'd get up and I'd say something completely dumb, completely wrong,
Right.
and have all my peers there looking at me. And that's what happens in a courtroom. You have all the other lawyers there, you have the judges there, the clerks. And I'll tell you, but you have to be able to operate when the pressure's on and people are looking at you. And so I think it's a good place to cut your teeth as far as that goes, especially if you struggle with it. If it's natural, it's natural.
Right.
Some people got it.
Well, I'll take up for you a little bit when you say you're completely wrong. What they do is that, let's say you're in contracts, right? And that professor, he knows contracts backwards and forwards, up and down, and he doesn't know crap about criminal law or personal. He don't know anything about it, but he knows contracts. And so they, you get a case and it builds, but you're starting on a case from 1800 or something,
Right.
So you got that case locked down, and you haven't read the next one, but he's got it read,
Sure.
and so when he's coming at you, you're always going to be wrong because he knows the ending of the story. So I wouldn't say that it made you weren't being stupid. You just didn't have all the information.
Yeah,
so
maybe I was a little
and purposely lead you into traps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I learned very quickly to and thank God for the internet, to actually look. There was a site that would tell you the reason why the case is taught.
Right.
And
that would be
it's
great.
to establish the legal principle and the understanding of this particular thing. And so
Yeah.
you know what they're getting at to start out with, right? They might ask you 10 different
You're
questions.
working backwards from the ending.
Exactly, yeah. So once I got that under my belt, I was like, I got y'all now. Yeah, I got y'all now. Well, all right, so I was surprised about law school. I really enjoyed it. I thought I was like, I can do anything that I put my mind to, kind of thing, and I'm going to suffer terribly for the whole time I'm here. And I got there and I just really enjoyed it. Like Erin said, like having some sort of competitive struggle. It was a mental game and it was challenging. I just really was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. That was the thing I loved most about it, is that mental battle back and forth. The thing I didn't like about it is that you still have all the same social little cliques, and
I think they're worse.
Yeah, they're
it
they're
seems worse.
Hyper competitive. But it's all the smart people all getting together, and they only want to hang out with the people that are doing the best. You know what I mean? And for some people, they do think that whatever score
Equates
I get, whatever score I get in contracts is going to matter in 6 years when I'm trying to help somebody with a contract claim, and it helps to a degree in that you learn to be diligent in how to research law and all that, but for the most part, it doesn't do anything other than teach you the principles, and that's what it's there for. What did y'all most enjoy about law school?
I really enjoy, just the classes where it was the Socratic method, and being able to the classes where it's open dialogue with the professor. But other than that, I can't really think of anything that I really liked about it. Well, and also law school just seems to attract, particular type of personality.
Yeah.
So if you're a really laid back person that doesn't really care about, status and I don't know, superficial politics of things, then you might be in for a bit of a rude awakening.
Luckily, I agree with you. I mean, I went similar in that regard, and I remember. I mean, I was kind of kept to myself and didn't know a lot of folks, especially the first year, and they're doing all kind of stuff, man. They are queen of the ball in the little small section of law school, and so one of the guys were we had. Little groups that you stayed in. You had certain classes that you stayed in together, and they were putting a flag football team together. And this is especially important for David to hear. And so I was like, I'll freaking go out there, man.
Oh, wait. And, you mean D'Angelo?
D'Angelo, I'm sorry. D'Angelo. Yeah. So I go out there, and then, I don't say anything, and I forget, they put me at something, and you could just see it in their face. They were like, holy shit. And so, we were the first law school to win the flag football championship. Congratulations. And from that point on, I was like, oh, that's Reid. Yeah. But I just went back to my apartment.
Yeah. The thing that killed me the most is just, I don't know, it's like some people go to law school and they all of a sudden think or feel that they have to act completely differently.
There's a superiority thing, and then there's also like a they want to show they're smarter than you type thing. Yeah, it's kind of it's strange.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's a bubble. Yeah, 100% a bubble.
So I mean, I 100% agree with that. I mean, there's some people that go to law school because they want that Esquire at the end of their name, right? I was surprised at the end of law school I was like, oh, that's what that means.
Yeah, right.
Like, Esquire at the end. Yeah. So I didn't necessarily go for that purpose and everything, but I do appreciate the fact that what I did learn was a deep respect for it. Okay, because like people come here and want to live here in the United States, want to do business here in the United States, because if they are wronged, they feel like they can go to our justice system, and whether they get cheated in a business deal or whether they get hurt on the street by getting mugged or whatever, that they're going to get a day in court, and that the law is going to apply equally to everybody. And the only I have never felt pressure to behave a certain way, right? Oh. But once I became an attorney, I did feel a level of responsibility in that, and that I'm representative of the judicial system, and if I am ugly to people, or if I do something that's unfair or whatever, that's going to reflect on the whole system, and so in that respect, it's made me a little bit more conscious of my conduct. So I did change a little bit, but I think in a good way. I'm just a little more conscious about how I conduct every part of my sort of especially business. Yeah. But.
Well, I kind of went the opposite way.
I know you did.
I know. I agree with you 100%. And I grew up, like I said, with my dad being an elected official. Mm-hmm. It was very incumbent upon me and my brother and my family to, we couldn't get in trouble, and you couldn't do things in public. And now that I'm not an elected official, I can do whatever the hell I want. But inside the framework of the law, I still behave like I should. Yeah, and I do that out of respect for the practice. Mm-hmm. I mean, because it truly is something that, in my mind, is one of the great professions that we have. For not only the reasons that you listed, but we're the only self-regulating profession. And so we hold ourselves accountable, where no other profession really does that, which I think is really special and makes it really cool to be an attorney.
I never thought about that part of it. Did y'all have a favorite class that surprised you?
Yeah, tax law.
Tax law. Yeah, that sounds terrible, by the way.
I think it was really just, what was it? Criminal procedure was one of my favorite ones, and then just all the best. Oh, I did?
No, I did.
I did too.
Yeah. How about that?
And
my dad being the DA, my worst, and I'd lived with it, and he talked to me about law and all this stuff, and that my worst grade in law school was criminal.
Damn. Yeah, so it's criminal procedure and criminal law, but really all the first year classes, all the
base,
the foundational classes. I don't know why. I think it might have just been because you're not completely distraught and worn out through the first year.
Sure.
And so second year and third year.
I got a good little criminal story for y'all from law school. So, you're nervous. You don't know how classes are going to go, what's going to happen. And unfortunately, he was in my section in our criminal law class. It's in Macon. He had an intruder, his first week of law school. An intruder that he had shot and killed, right? And this guy broke in his house, and it was purely self-defense. I mean, it was bad. I'm not going to say his name. So, obviously, even if it's to protect yourself, you're not feeling great that you just killed a person. And my criminal law professor was a little bit of just a wild character. So he wore the exact same clothes every day. Now, they were different, but he just said, it's my uniform. Blue collared shirt, khaki pants every day, but different.
Yeah.
He had long hair, and he would throw. He debated about did gravity exist? How can you prove? You know, just he was kind of an oddball. So second week of law school, we're in there, and he goes, "Let's call this guy Chris." That's not his name, but he says, "Let's talk about Chris's case, guys."
Oh
and
my
he's in
gosh.
there, and I'm going.
It's a little awkward,
I'm like,
boss.
oh no,
Wow.
please, Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my introduction to law school.
Ow.
Yeah.
A classmate's case?
He was in the class.
Yeah, we're talking about like self-defense and all
Yeah,
that.
wow.
So he's going through the elements of Chris's
This is a great
situation.
example.
Yeah.
I totally am not empathizing with Chris.
No,
but let's see.
And the
this is
poor
a great-
dude, is sitting in there, just
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, there's some people out there that can really operate in certain academic settings.
Yeah.
That probably
he should not be allowed. My criminal professor, I loved him, but he should not be allowed around public in the public at all. No.
I had one of the most interesting civil procedure professors, and he was one of my favorites. He would actually DJ at the beginning of every class for about 5 minutes, and he would pick a song that related to the yeah. And
More money, more problems.
all
Is
that,
what-
I mean, I can't even think of a lot of them right now. But like, you know, he was pretty good at putting those little things together. I was really surprised. I was interested in constitutional law. I really like constitutional law. I did okay. I did good in that class, but I really did good with or criminal procedure in part because I think that's where constitutional law is sort of where the rubber meets the road when you start applying the Sixth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Fourth Amendment.
Sure.
That's where, in most cases, people run into constitutional law in their sort of average everyday life. But
well, Aaron, let me ask you this: I kind of one of the things I was surprised about is that you don't really learn the law. I know that's weird to say, but you don't learn the law, kind of what's going on. That shocked me. Was there anything like going through law school that you came out going, well, that was way different than I thought?
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of the same thing. It was just, they, you're given hypotheticals that aren't really that realistic.
Yeah. We
like,
talk a lot about, intentional infliction of emotional distress.
Yeah.
On the show, we talked about that. Like,
and
it
never happens.
Yeah, exactly. And our, I guess one example from when I was there was, we had summary judgment paper to write, and it was about trademark infringement. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, and there was hardly any facts, as in for the opposing side that they had. And one of the ways you can get summary judgment is by saying they didn't produce enough evidence to substantiate.
I mean, it has to have some element of the case. So,
yeah, exactly. And so I wrote this long can I cuss?
Yeah.
long ass summary judgment paper, and the whole thing argued we should be granted summary judgment because they didn't produce enough evidence to substantiate themselves, and then I meet with the professor, and she's like, yeah, we you're right, but we really need you to argue the facts. And I'm like, wow, I just spent 2 weeks.
Yeah,
on
that's and when people hear brief, by the way, it's not brief.
No.
Yeah.
It is very long. It's very tedious.
Right,
and it is hell.
Right, and law school, everybody's trying to impress, and so the professors actually have to tell the law school students that there's a limit to the size of the paper you can write. You can only have 5 pages. You can only have 10.
So Mercer is their claim to fame, I guess, is they're nationally known as
moot court
is for writing for
legal
writing.
Yeah.
And one thing, and I'm happy I went there. I'm happy I learned all the things that you have to do with legal writing. But one of the things that I hate about it is that we were taught a way to essentially, if you're writing a Supreme Court brief, right? That judges don't want to read that in real practice. They don't want a 30-page paper. You better shorten it to a page, son, and get it to them where they can.
To the point.
And in law school, it taught you have to just dissect every
There
single
better
thing.
be a table of contents. All that. Yeah.
But I remember when I first came to work with Vic, and I wrote one. It was long, and he was just kind of laughing at it, and he's like, "Cut it," and I cut it, and he's like, cut it again. I mean, I cut it and cut it and cut it and cut it and cut it, and then, so I had to kind of relearn, how to write, which was strange. That was a big shock for me after I got out of law school. Just the whole the real world application to legal writing was strange.
Yeah, I guess I have two more things that were just kind of crazy. For the blue book citation, the way you have to cite things, I just find
miserable,
completely ridiculous.
It's
There's no reason for all these rules. It's just absurd.
And you have to have it in a certain in quotations. I mean, talk about that. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's like you're writing computer code, and it's not going to function if you don't put it in there.
Right.
You put a period in the wrong place, or you don't capitalize something or underline something.
Yeah, you can't just put the case and the number, volume, and year or anything like that. I mean, depending on what you're citing, where you're citing it, what court it's from, what jurisdiction. I mean,
and then you got to check that. Make sure nobody's has something that has a negative result on that. Shepherdizing.
I just it's so difficult. They don't really. I mean, there's only one program I know of out there that can actually, do them for you, which is LexisNexis's word integration.
And that's real cheap too.
Yeah, it's like $400 per attorney per month.
Right.
It's ridiculous. And then I guess the other super surprising thing, so just not really being realistic and more being just for academic exercises. But, one thing that always drove me crazy was, they simultaneously tell you don't just make up issues, but then they want you to negative issue spot where it's like, if someone breaks into a house and, the person that owns the home grabs their gun but doesn't actually do anything, say they hide in the closet and, person leaves, whatever, they want you to say, if they had walked in there with the gun and done something, they would have been able to claim self-defense, but they didn't do that, and so self-defense is not an issue here. And it's like, of course it's not an issue.
Because he didn't see it.
That's why I didn't talk about it in my essay.
Exactly.
So that's funny you mentioned that, because I think that's why I did bad in criminal law, because I just knew the answers from Dad. And so Chase Duff, who works with us, is an attorney now, good attorney. He was a paralegal for us and did personal injury work. His worst class in law school was torts, because he was applying real world to academia, and it just doesn't work.
You got to score points. Like I was in the trial ad class, and I remember I felt like I did really well, and one of the judges was an actual judge. He was like and he goes, "Hey, why didn't you object when this person was doing this?" And I said, "Because he wasn't hurting me."
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you'll draw attention to it. We've talked about that.
And because I know the judges don't like being put in the position of actually having to make a ruling. And if you're just objecting to be, obstructionist, or just to throw somebody off, or just to score points, or whatever, the actual judge is going to hate you. Right. And so I'd been in the courtroom with my dad so many times, and I'm like, "Why aren't you objecting? That's, whatever, that's hearsay." And he says, "Well, he's being an idiot and he's not hurting me. He's actually hurting his own case." Right. And he's like, and I explained that to him, and he goes, "You're never going to be good at trial ad in actual law school." He says, "But you'll do well. You'll do well once you get out." So that was really one of the frustrating things about law school, is that like the practical application that I sort of already understood to a degree was not applicable there. And that was a challenge.
I agree too. And all of us come from fathers who are attorneys, and people would think that is a benefit. I don't think it's a benefit at all in law school. It almost hurts you. Not in law school. In the real world it does, obviously, but in law school it makes it more challenging.
Yeah, it hurt me the first year and a half, and it's because it took me a year and a half to realize, they wanted you to
score points versus be right.
Yeah, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, and just, the negative issue spotting thing in particular was just mind-boggling for me. I'm
Right.
like, you know, why am I right?
I want one more thing on that, Chase. I wanted to talk about the citing of cases and things like that. So no, it just but. When you look at the document,
you're boring me with this stuff. I know you're boring.
I know.
They don't know what the hell they're doing.
I know. I'm just saying. So when you have a brief that you're writing, okay, it might be 5 pages, and you go, well, you can write 5 pages in like an hour, right? Easy. This thing may take 3 weeks. It is not. So that is a little deceiving to the public when they're, especially when you're paying hourly to an attorney and they give you a big bill, and all you do is produce this 5-page document.
Right.
Well, it took me 40 hours to do this.
Yeah. You gotta, if you cite one case, you have to go read all the cases that have negative opinions of that case to see if it's negative in the way that applies to the issue that you're discussing. And so, just to read one case, it might be 27 pages long, but then you go to look at the cases that have done it negative and that have a negative sort of connotation to it, the ones that are flagged caution.
Right.
You have to read all of those to determine. So that might you're quickly into 100 pages of reading just to cite one case in one brief.
One piece of one sentence.
One little point. Yeah. Well, guys, that's going to do it for us today. I hope you learned something about sort of our journey through taking the bar, getting ready for law school and all that, and you enjoyed it. Next time, we're going to have Erin back, and we're going to put him through a little quiz. He's passed the bar, but can he pass the Layman Law School bar? So please join us next time, and thanks for watching.
I'm scared. Pray for me.